Okay, well, I think we can get started. Hi everyone. My name is Alfonso Zamaro. I am the CEO and co-founder of Unblur, and I will be chairing today's session. So today we're going to be discussing in this webinar drivers for digital transformation and in fire and rescue services. And we're bringing several experts from many different backgrounds to share with us a bit of their experiences, lessons, and real cases on how fire services in the UK are embracing digital solutions. This is a topic that has been very discussed in many forums, but from our perspective, it's actually a very good timing now to go deeper on how this can happen and how digital tools can become something mainstream in fire services, since we have all the different ingredients from software to resilient telecommunications to hardware devices. All the critical ingredients from a technology perspective are ready to be implemented, in the fire service. However, there are many other challenges, to manage beyond the technology itself, from change management to how do you actually update your processes, how do you manage your stakeholders so they benefit from it, but they also share feedback to truly find out how these digital tools can actually help in the service. So today we're going to be discussing all of this from a very practical perspective. So I hope this is going to be some valuable content for everyone. We're going to have 4 talks of 15 minutes, followed by 5-minute questions at the end. Feel free to comment on the chat for the questions, and on the question session you can also open your mic and ask as well. And this is basically it. So without further ado, we're gonna give room to our first speaker, Steve McClendon. He's our account manager in the UK at Unblur. He's a former transformation 2020 program leader in Mid and West Wales Fire Service, and he has also been working previously in other fire services. So with quite some years of experience now in his belt on how to from operational side, but as well on innovation. So he's going to be sharing more with us about his experience on digital transformation back in his days in the fire service. So Steve, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Alfonso. I hope everybody can see my screen. So so really what I'm going to talk about today is really how I've ended up here and where my journey has led me from and to. Delighted to be able to share this webinar with colleagues from HMICFRS and Zebra. I promise I'll try not to tread on any toes in regards to the presentation and content. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about is just really my journey and how I've ended up here, and just give you some food for thought as to what's possible. So he says he can start his screen. So as I said, I'm talking about my digital innovation journey, then really run into the art of the possible, and that's what's possible now, and then just give you a flavour of how this can be achieved. So a little bit about me. As Alfonso said, I started my fire service career back in 1987, did first part in Royal Berkshire and then transferred over to Mid and West Wales, as well as doing a 2.5-year stint in the Welsh Government as Assistant Fire and Rescue Advisor. For the last 5 years, I was afforded the opportunity to lead a digital transformation programme within Mid and West Wales, the T20 programme. But during that time, I was also fortunate to lead projects in bringing drones into Wales, identifying them we didn't have a platform or a way of sharing that information in real time in an effective way. And I also did projects that put 4G infrastructure onto our fire appliances with GPS tracking. And then I've also run other challenges in the to achieve the holy grail, really, which is being able to track firefighters within building without an infrastructure. But what I'm going to talk today is really about my journey. And this is a slide that I put together in my old project, which was very much about the 4 pillars and principles that myself and my team worked to when looking at anything digital within the organization, and how can we do that. So the 4 things that we came up with is, or 5 things really. The first thing we did with everything is, right, is technology the right answer? And I've said this loads of time before in previous presentations I've done, but we would always give it the NASA Biro pen test. And that is, if the anecdote is that NASA spent millions and years trying to develop a pen that worked in space, when the Russians just used a pencil. So sometimes technology is not the right way to go. But one of the things you'll hear me repeat throughout this session is the importance that whatever you do, especially in a digital transformation arena, is you've got to have the end users with you. They've got to be there from the start. They've got to be help shaping and guiding and understanding why this transformation is happening. You also need to make sure any technology you bring in is built on the concept of Fisher Price. It's got to be simple, easy, bright, intuitive, and able to be used by anybody in under more or less any circumstances. You also want to make sure that any technology you bring in is built on the principle of Lego, as in it's scalable, it's non-proprietary, so you can stick things onto it, but you can change it and adapt it as you go through your innovation journey. And then the final one is that you need to make sure that anything technology-wise and anything that's put in data in, it works on the principle of Ohio, which is only handle it once. If the information exists, you shouldn't have to put it in repeated times. You should be able just to access it, and you need to be able to use it in real time without having to go through repetitive processes. So with these things in mind, the next thing we did was we tried to work out why incident management is so challenging, and what were the common things that were kept appearing or kept causing us problems that we wanted to try and overcome. And I think one of the key things is, one is about being able to share information in real time, but the other side is also being able to get your own situational awareness. Can you get in your mind a clear picture of what is going on, what the hazards are, and what the potential of the incident is? And often that's been done through either plan drawings or radio messages, which relies on the individual having to use their own imagination or experience to be able to visualize what it is. When we brought in drones, we then suddenly found we had this fantastic capability. And what we realized was that the drone imagery was on the controller of the drone, and we needed to get it into the hands of everybody who needed to see it. And what it delivers is, if I was to say to you, can you think of, we're attending an incident, we've got three sectors, wide area flooding, multi agencies and multi people trapped in their homes, fast running water, and that's the scene. Now you'll be trying to imagine that, and there may be further dialogue to try and underpin that, whereas solutions now allow this to happen. You can see on the left hand side the three sectors, the location of the drone, the location of the appliances, the location of the casualties, the general layout, plus then you can start to get real-time streaming feeds, so everybody's seeing the same thing, and therefore everybody is hopefully getting the same shared view to then be able to have more informed conversations on tactics, risks, and incident resolution. So the technology is there, it's well established, and now it's just a case of starting to use it. So what is the challenge? Well, the challenge that we always undertook within the programs that I was involved in when I was within service to what I'm doing now and continuing to drive through with the support of Unblur and our partners, is that we want to make first responders safer. We want to give them all the tools and all the information in a way that allows them to manage and make good decisions in real time, plus then go back and review them to obviously support their learning. And to do this, we need to create a seamless digital ecosystem, which I know that's something which Nicola is going to speak about in a little bit. So one of the things that I'm noticing now, and I've seen it probably for about the last 8 years, a lot of organizations in their strategic plans, and when they're talking, they start saying, right, we are going to start developing digital innovations to transform our service, which is brilliant. However, I found that unless you've got a dedicated team, resources, time, and a real strong strategic ambition, you are going to end up getting stuck, because everybody keeps focusing on trying to create the new best thing without realizing that there's actually a lot of innovation that's done. The technology's out there, and really now is about a change of approach. Instead of trying to be the digital innovator, what you want to be is you want to transition into the digital adopter. As I said, the technology and solutions are out there, and there's a lot of very good technology and software and connectivity which will allow people to go from not having a digital operational environment to moving into one. So what we're advocating now is that you don't need to be a digital innovator. You need to get on your evolutionary journey. You need to jump on board and start moving on. As you go forwards, you will naturally start to innovate within the digital arena, because you'll be using the technology and learning how you can use it in a different and more effective way. So when we start to look at what do we want the digital technology to do, one of the important things is, as long as we're taking the end users with us, is we need to take these strategic leads along too. And what we need to make sure, and everything we've done within the design and development of Unblur, has been to make sure that we're designing and delivering a product which bridges known capability gaps. And we're all aware of the Grenfell Tower and the 7/7 bombings and the Manchester Arena bombings and other events. But the key messages and learnings that come from it are, as you can see here, situational awareness, multi-agency, co-location, and being able to share information in real time. Enhanced comms, does control know what the incident commander, and do people remote from the incident have an awareness and able to contribute? Sharing of risk assessments. You know, we need to be able to make sure we fully understand what our partner agencies' risks and control measures are. Access to reliable, accurate information on the risks and the buildings which we're going into. Obviously, and most importantly, the way we can manage and coordinate the care of casualties who are involved in the incident. And we also need then to be able to make sure that when we are doing this, we're capturing the information to allow us then to feed back and get the operational learning back. So how do we do this? Well, there's three component parts which I'm going to quickly go through. They are the software. Often we've seen some absolutely brilliant ICUs with fantastic connectivity, with great hardware, only then to be complemented with an Excel spreadsheet. You know, there are some great software platforms out there, such as ours, Iris Core, which is basically an information bucket. It allows people who are authorized to put information into one space from any source, from a digital source, and then it organizes it and it allows people to access it in real time to make sure that they're using the best information to make the best decision for the resolution and the safety of the incident. Again, it's there to help decision makers simplify decision making. And one of the strengths of our platform is that it has been designed by first responders for first responders. So it's not an industrial or a project management tool that's been changed and adapted to try and fit the first responder stroke fire service market. So when we talk about the three component parts, the software, the networking, and the hardware, what we're really proud to be is in really effective partnerships with Accelerate and Zebra, and you'll be hearing from Ollie and Nicola very soon. But what we do is we work together collectively, and we think we're different as a collective group because we are all experts in our respective technologies. We do all have experienced end users embedded within our team. So there's people who have worked in the sector that we're trying to create these solutions for. We also are very passionate across the three of us to engage with our customers and end users and our partners to make sure we fully understand what they need and when they need it. And we also work collectively together to make sure that we can create the best hybrid solution that meets the potential customer and end users need. What this also means is that if you engage with the three of us, you will never get into the realms of, oh, that software doesn't work because it's the Zebra hardware or it's the accelerated comms. We don't have that. We work together and we work it out and make sure that it works. So again, as I said, Nicola, I'm sure, is going to talk to you about the connectivity, which is a vital element to enable the new way of working, the digital sharing to work. So I won't steal her thunder, but they have got lots of experience and a lot of great technology to enable that to happen. And then I'm also going to not step on Ollie's shoes with regard to hardware. And the type of hardware that is coming through, particularly from Zebra, is really reliable, ruggedized hardware, but it's also multifaceted. And again, not wanting to step on Paul's shoes from West Mids, it's now great to see that organizations saying, well, we're not just going to buy a device for this, we're going to make sure that it does multiple things. So there's familiarity in the use of the device across the piece, and it's able to make that seamless transition from being an office-based tool to being an operational tool. So how can this be achieved? So how do you go from saying we want to adopt new technology to getting to the point where you have it in and your end users are starting to use it and see the benefits? So as I said at the start, the key to it is the end user, but it's also about making sure that you engage with companies like us to get an insight of what's possible, and we can help and guide you through that, and making sure you look at the breadth of options that are available. So what we've done is we've looked back and really sort of looked at what are the 4 key things that will help you from when you've selected your chosen solution to get you to the end point where it's being used on a day-to-day basis. And the 4 key areas that we've identified is co-creation, immersive learning, empathy towards the users, and being mindful of the age groups and the people who are actually using it. So I'm quickly going to go into a little bit of detail about each one. So co-creation is making sure you're not doing digital technology to people, is they are coming with you, they are leading the in charge, they are fully involved. So again, having the end user involved at the very start is critical. It's also making sure that you're able to maintain the strategic backing. So there's a strategic imperative that this is done. One of the challenges with that is sometimes projects like these can take a year, 2 years to run. And therefore, knowing the flux within organizations, you often see people who were leading on it are then moved and you have to start over again and re-energize, which often knocks the project back. It's also making sure when you start to do things, what you think you're going to get at the start will be different to what you get at the end. If you're doing these iterative cycles of experimenting, testing, does that work? We think that will work. And iterations, the more you do that, the more ownership the end user gets. Again, immersive learning, this is a simple one. We're quite good at this within the fire service. The more you make the training realistic to how it's going to be used, one, the more familiar and comfortable the end user becomes, but also from a supplier developer side, we have much more reassurance that what we've designed is actually right and it works. The more people use it, the more familiar they are, the more people will start to lead the training and the development. Again, empathy towards emotions of the age groups. Yeah, it is making sure is we've always hid behind, oh, that'll never take in because firefighters don't use tech. We're in a different world now. We're probably where we are with this type of technology for the operation environment where smartphones and apps were 5 years ago. The best way to do this, as I said, get people involved from the very start, all different age groups and ranges and cultures and levels of experience with tech, and really get them to see the value of it and what it will do. The more you have advocates within your own organization, people who are championing it, the easier it is for it to be adopted. One of the things we say that is always required, whatever technology you choose, is to make sure that you do agile deployment. Be ready to change it, experiment. You also want to exploit frameworks like G Cloud 13, which the Iris core and tactics platform can be procured for, because that allows you to move very quickly from, yes, we found the technology that we want, to putting it into place. And that can be done as quick as three months. Again, reiterating, involve end users from day one, and also expect more from your devices and your tech. And this is what I know Ollie and Nicola are going to talk about. And final one, which I sort of say with a bit of trepidation, but you should be very demanding of your suppliers. Challenge us. Make sure we're giving you everything which you need. The more you challenge us, the more we'll learn, the more we'll be able to react and deliver the outcomes which you want. So that's me. Thank you for your attention and your time. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Steve. Very interesting. So if anyone has any questions, please, you can open your mic or write it on the chat as well. Nope.
Hi, Steve. I was wondering, do you have any links with academia when you're rolling this out, or did you involve academia in the trials?
When I was in T20, we did actually have a partnership with the University of Cardiff, their AI and their computer dynamics department. So we did start speaking to them on a range of things. We do within the Unblur team, we actually have a doctor of AI who's actually heading up our AI team. So we are constantly monitoring what's going on in the academic world. At the moment, we haven't got any projects running with universities, but it's always something which we're open to.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mick, for the question. We can take one more question before I will move to the next presentation.
You can see Craig's got his hand up.
Craig, yes, please.
Oh, there's another.
Hi, Steve. Craig from Shropshire. Just out of interest, because I've been asked this question recently, is that how do you see the Irish platform integrating with Resilience Direct or not integrating with it? Do you see Iris as a standalone platform, or do you see a space for Resilience Direct also?
I think that's a good question. I was funny enough, I was asked the same question when I was in Warwickshire on Tuesday. We've always seen our position in relation to Resilience Direct is that we're a complementer, that we do the bits before the Resilience Direct level gets involved. We're always open to looking at how we can integrate and share data, but we're very resistant, but not totally opposed to taking data from one system and copying it and putting it somewhere else. We would much rather have a solution where it's integrated, so it is shared, but there's only one version of the truth. It's interesting that when we do engage with FRSs, you can always tell the person who's the ND lead and airbox user, because they're normally the ones that are sat in the corner with their arms crossed, first of all, sort of going, I'm an airbox user and that's it. But when we start showing where Iris and Tactics is designed to be used, because it's designed to be used from the very first decision to the very last, so it's able to scale up to the point where if you had a TCG or an SCG starting to run and the ND and the RD stuff would come in, it would complement it. We have spoken to Airbox and we are open to, our aim is to make sure that we can deliver the best solution for our users. So the answer is we aren't integrated with Resilience Direct yet because we haven't had a need to, but we're always open to engaging and seeing where the options are. Does that answer your question, Craig?
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
Cheers.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next presentation. If there are some remaining questions or anything comes later on, we're going to have some extra 10 minutes at the end for any further questions for any of the speakers. So our next speaker, Paul Donnell, station commander in West Midlands Fire Service and project manager for mobile devices implementations. And we are also currently working together with him and with Zebra about this project for digital enabling their workforce, which is going to be the topic of his presentation. So, Paul, floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I don't know if I'll be able to match Steve for time there, but we'll see. Let me share my screen. Okay, my name is Paul Dunnell, and I'm Station Commander in West Midlands Fire Service, and I'm currently the Project Manager for Operations Mobile Devices. So in our plan, our CRMP 2022-24, but it's just been pushed over to 25, is our 3-year rolling plan. We looked at how we would use digital transformation and have a digital first approach. We had wording in our plan. I'll read these out, but they're quite wordy. We'll explore opportunities to enhance and transform the service to our communities that are underpinned by innovative and digital solutions. We would have a commitment to research and development, enabling assertive, effective and safe firefighting. And in a culture where digital as an enabler will help people, systems and processes become more efficient and effective by providing assurance and intelligence for evidence-based decisions with accurate, useful and timely information that will reduce community risk through our mobile workforce. So that's, there needs to be more full stops in that, but there's not. So that's quite wordy. The bit that my project stepped into was really how do we use technology to help our workforce work better and work smarter. And if we looked at it from the angle of when we are in our home life, we would have access to a mobile phone or smartphone, which we would use. A lot of us would have a tablet at home, or we may have a laptop computer or PC. And we would use whichever device really suits our needs at the time. We live a lot of our lives on mobile phones. So we felt that as an organization, we should be providing that facility to our staff to be able to pick and choose how they do their work, when they do their work. So we started to explore how we could implement that service-wide, provide that extra functionality to our staff to pick and choose when and where they do their work. We went with mobile first, and we wanted our staff to be able to access our systems whilst out and about in the community. So if we give them that mobile technology, they can then maximize their contact time with our communities and ultimately making them safer. So we looked at how we can do that and what direction we would take. And we started with our fire stations. And when we Steve talked about looking at what you can get from a device, the usability, we had PCs on our stations. We moved to VDIs. We want to move away from VDIs to go cloud-based, so we free it, so we don't have the additional costs of servers. So we wanted to look at what could we bring in. We want to go mobile. Can it replace? Can we get VDIs replaced? So we looked at a device that would give us that functionality, which you can see here, the Zebra handheld device and the Cradle, which gives us a PC, so that can double up. So we would have every firefighter on duty would have access to a mobile device, handheld on station. And then on our appliances, we've added additional tablets. So we've come quite accustomed to having an MDT, mobile data terminal, in the front of the appliance. But In the back is a bunch of folders with maps and paperwork and forms. So we put a mobile tablet onto every frontline appliance. And this then gives our crews the opportunity to easily move from an office space where they're working, take devices with them straight out, and use the devices for prevention and protection work. And they've got a choice. They can do it on a mobile handheld device, or they can use the tablet for a larger screen and interact with the community. And to prevent that process of going out, writing on a piece of paper, bringing it back to station, transferring that data from a piece of paper into a PC. We tried quite a few years ago to do that with Palm PDAs, but connectivity in the UK didn't support, and it didn't work, and they were received really badly. Everyone was ultimately blaming a piece of mobile technology, which it wasn't. That would have worked had technology worked, had the connectivity worked, but the workforce kind of fell out with that approach. So there were some lessons learned back then. That was quite some time ago. So we now see that when the appliances go out, that we want these mobile devices to be used for prevention and protection work, but we also want them to support our delivery of our response work. So how do we provide a replacement to what currently is at lower level incidents? The wallet with the laminated cards, the China graph, the note paper, the briefing pads that get whipped around incident grounds, the risk assessments that end up lost, screwed up. Digital would enable that. So these tablets and handhelds, and Unblur provides that on a platform. So we've engaged with both Zebra and Unblur, Zebra for the devices, Unblur for this software, to help us with incident management. So on the response side would be where we're looking towards Unblur to support us utilizing those devices. And we are working with them on a 6-month proof of concept. So when Steve talked about if you implement it, what we want to know is, before we jump in 2 feet and do a Vicar of Dibley in the puddle, we want to understand that it's going to do what we want it to do before we invest, because it's a big investment, and the value you won't find in the commercial profit. We're going to release value in efficiencies and employee experiences, and removing frustrations. And on the response side of it, the value that we see mainly is around the ability to make quicker decisions, the ability to have the information you need to make those decisions at hand when you need it, resulting in quicker, better decision making, which ultimately will mean the resolution to an incident more effectively. We want improved safety. So like I said about the risk assessments that are written on paper and lost, well, it doesn't help us in assessing risk very well. It doesn't help us with litigation post an event or an inquiry, when we can't really trace back what we said, what we did, why we chose to do something. We get the ability with this system to track our firefighters, so we can see where everybody is on the incident ground. So we have the safety element from that as well. And that's what we really saw value in. So we've got 2 parts of the trial, really. One is handheld devices that you saw on 9 stations, but 5 stations we're focusing on the launch of Unblur with. So 6-month proof of concept trial across 5 stations. And it says that everyone has access to tactics and core. So we see this technology, and what we didn't want to do was the usual fire service thing of put lots of controls in. Then you can't be trusted to do that. So we'll make sure this person does that, because you remove all the functionality away from the software is offering you. You need to trust people to use it and use it effectively, and explore how they want to use it and get the best from it for themselves. And we're really keen to do that. So we've left it open, fairly open, that you can access it, you can do what you can make changes. We had conversations like, can I put that in and delete it? will it delete it for everybody? We're like, yes, it would delete it for everybody, but you can just put it back on again. Don't worry. So we're keen to make sure that everybody has access to it. All of our crew, so every firefighter and officer riding a frontline fire appliance will have a mobile handheld device on them, and every vehicle will have those tablets. Level 2, level 3 officers coming onto scene will utilize the hardware that's already on scene on those appliances. We are in the early stages of our trial now, so we're training our staff in those areas and already starting to explore new ways of working with our partners. So when Steve asked about being demanding, I hope we're not too demanding, but we are regularly in contact with Unblur. Can you have a look at this? And they're thinking, yeah, we will. But keep asking. With Zebra, Ollie, who's on the call, will attest. We are asking for support and hand holding along the way to get from it, or the best from it, really. If we don't do that, the more we ask and demand of them, and the more we explore with our teams, the more feedback we'll get on this proof of concept, because the idea is to come out of this at the end with the feedback that says that this is what we want, this is how we're going to implement it, and this is what we want to do. With launching this, it is quite tricky. Like Steve said, you'll get people who dive on it and they're on it really quickly, really into it. You'll get people who have no interest in it. I'm quite happy with my pen and paper, and those questions are being raised when we've gone into our stations with this project around, well, I can write that down quicker than you can dictate it. But in some cases that might be the case. Then you don't need to use this. This shouldn't get in the way of an effective response. It should support an effective response. And what we want to look at actually is not me, really, because there's people joining our service now who are a lot younger, who have a very different mindset, who can cross the road looking at a phone amazingly. They can do lots of things with their head looking at a phone. Those people are going to be joining the service, and their reliance or need for data and mobile technology is what we're sort of working for. But that's going to take a long time for us to fully implement a lot of those things and change. But it starts with just getting involved with it. So we're in the early stages. It's positive. The feedback is positive, but it is challenging to people. And the best sort of, it's not really digital transformation. You're just bringing some digital solutions and software. People accept it in their home instantly. Oh, this has come. You don't get an instruction manual. You get a new iPhone, you get a new whatever. You just open out of the box and it works because it's intuitive. This is the same. We're not putting lots of detailed training together because there isn't the requirement for it. People will learn themselves, and we're reassuring people, play with it, make a mistake, it doesn't matter, work it out. We will work through problems, and giving people the assurance that there is no comeback or there's no problem if you break something gives them the confidence to use it. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I suppose I'll rely on some questions that we might prompt anything that I haven't sort of covered, or thoughts that you might have. There we go.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you, Paul. Very interesting presentation. For me, I think from speaking with plenty of fire services across the UK, across Europe, and in many other places, I find really interesting how Westmeads is taking this approach, which is a very agile culture within the fire service at all levels, executive, operational, and also tactical, and seeing how you people are really taking this testing approach. Yeah, super interesting. So we have some questions in the chat from Lynn West. Hi, Paul, is there any integration into your control room system from the fire incident ground, sharing information to support decision-making, incident management, and response?
Okay. So our controls work on vision, and it doesn't integrate directly with vision. It takes information from vision. So I'm on with Unblur, telling everybody how Unblur works. When a control creates our incidents, it takes the information out and it appears in Unblur automatically. So there is that side of it. Control can see it. They can see it on a separate system. They can log into Unblur and see what's happening at the incident ground. Our incident rooms will be using Unblur to look at what's going on the incident ground. So the integration, tell me off if I get it wrong, is the other way. Is vision out to Unblur, not Unblur coming into vision. Steve's coming to speak to our control staff, and we want to explore with them what they might want from that system, how they see it. That this is what we're talking about, the end users. How do you see this? Here's something that you can use. How do you see this supporting you in the work and making your life better? And listening to the feedback from them and letting us know how they want to do it. The live logs that you see are there, and for me that's a bonus. I put something on a log and it's instantly available to be viewed remotely. Not I told somebody what message I wanted to send. They wrote that message down on a piece of paper on the back of a truck. They waited to get on the radio. They sent that message on a radio while a control operator then typed that message back onto another software system. It's been done once, and it could have been done once at the beginning. So yeah, that's how we're looking at it at the moment. We want to be led by fire control, and Unblur coming to see us and explore that with us, how our control operators want to use it and how they best see it supporting them.
That's great, Paul. Thanks very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Lynn, for the question. So we have Tony Oliver who raised a hand for a question.
Yeah, hi, Paul. It was
Hi,
a couple of questions from me, actually. One, I quite like the little logo, which I was going to ask you what it actually said in the boxes down the bottom right, and you put it on your last slide, because I couldn't read it when it was small. So if you could reshare that, I'd be interested to see how you're presenting that internally at West Mids. My question was a bit specific about the Zebra handheld devices.
Yep.
But you were talking about PDAs, so they're not PDAs, they're effectively mobiles, are they?
Yeah, Oliver will not be telling you. They're basically a smartphone. That's the way I look at it, an Android smartphone, yeah, with a bit more on that's already ruggedized.
And I think you said that you've given them to on duty, so you've not actually issued them to individuals. You're issuing a number to a station, are you?
Yeah, so we did look at personal issue, but I don't think the wallet would go that far. So we're looking in the trial. We are putting on the number you need for the frontline appliances you've got at that station, plus some redundancy when you've got appliances out and then a crew come on, because we're also looking at these devices to help us with, I want to say eCrew, but that's the software we use to say who's riding on the appliance. We want people to use that device to scan a seat, and then that tell us where they're riding and keep that live. So whenever someone moves, which we do more now, we have risk-based crewing where we separate out riders to different appliances. If they scan a seat, the system tells us where they are. So if they're out and we've got a load of people in a van going to do release, we want to know they're in a van on their way to do release. So we have redundancy, extra devices on station, and we're also trialing some stations with minimal redundancy to find out where we need to, Oliver will smirk here, how much we need to spend, basically.
And I think that was really why I was asking the question. Managing that kit and that cost of making sure they're charged and available and working and handed over between watches versus the issuing and the personality. There's a cost involved either way. And I wondered how it'll be interesting. I'd be really interested in your trial and what your feedback of that is, because
so if you went personal issue, it's so much easier. because the device goes to the individual and it's set up. The setup from an organizational side, having that shared device makes it a lot trickier. So, but there's cost savings to be made by not having everybody with a device. But yeah, so we'll find out what the best balance is for us in the amount of devices we need to use. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing in my mind. I'm not sure how much the cost saving actually is compared to its reliability, availability, and spares. It must start getting quite close to that personal issue, I would think. But I'd be interested to see what you learn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for the question. Perfect. So we're gonna move on to the next presentation. Again, we're gonna have some extra time at the end in case some other questions come up. So we're gonna have now Nicola Savage from Accelerate. So Nicola has supported UK and global emergency response organizations for 14 years now into how to take this integrated approach into technology adoption. She's also patron for the UK RO, and she's a big advocate for technology advancement in the sector. So today, Nicola is going to be talking about connecting your response and driving force behind technology digital transformation. So Nicola, floor is yours.
Okay, can everybody see my slides okay? Thumbs up.
Yes,
you can.
We can see good, yeah.
Thanks for that introduction, Alfonso. Probably don't need to introduce myself now, but I'm Nicola. I am the Group Marketing Director for Accelerate. Marketing probably feels like a bizarre title to be on this webinar, but I am actually one of the founding members of Accelerate. And with that means, yes, 14 plus years experience of actually running the project. So being the person that sits on the other side of the customer and listening to really kind of the challenges, particularly in the field of connectivity and connecting devices and applications and data transfer. So yeah, I've worn that T-shirt over the many years, both in the UK and also globally. We talk about in our organization, and it is the theme of today around digital transformation, but I think, you know, connecting your response is something that comes up massively, and some key kind of themes that come into that is, you know, we want to enable operational decision making. We require interoperability. That's not just interoperability between services. That's interoperability between technology, which is a huge, you know, and massively important factor that we consider both in our development, so research and development of the products and the solutions that we bring out to market, but also really important from a collaboration perspective. And we do have that collaboration with the partners that we're on here with. So bear with me. So connectivity, we believe, and we would, because it's a fundamental part of Accelerate's business, we believe connectivity is the key to unlocking the advantages of digital transformation, and is the difference between a successful project and an unsuccessful project, actually, which is what we see in many incidences. Paul, you touched on it earlier, actually, which is quite interesting because it is a topic that I bring into all of our conversations about how at home now, you know, we are fully connected. We are used to having Wi-Fi at our homes. We are used to having multiple devices. If we've got children, we've got, you know, they're on their Xboxes, they're using the internet for that. We're on our mobiles. When we leave our house, it automatically comes off our Wi-Fi home network, and all of a sudden, you know, we're operating on the terrestrial mobile service, and it all just feels very, very seamless. And it's wonderful in our home life. However, when you start to look at the critical landscape, the landscape that most of our customers operate in, which is, fire service. We work with ambulance, we work with specialist operations teams, we work with the government, across all different sides of things. And quite often when they need to deploy, it's quite an unpredictable environment. So from high-rise buildings, in-building requirements, right through to kind of movement from an urban location to a rural location, and therefore needing a solution or a mix of solutions that can actually meet the the demands and more importantly the connectivity demands of that world that we do live in, which is not a problem in our home lives, because we're fixed infrastructure, we're based where we are based. We know if we've got good or bad, mobile phone signal, and we can make some decisions to kind of mitigate that because we're always in one place. But when you're responding, you're not always in one place, and you don't know what is going to happen when you deploy to that environment. So we're familiar with the unfamiliar, and always having to build solutions or resilient layers into the mix of the kind of the realm that we work in, which is looking at mobile deployment. And we do that by creating a hybrid connectivity solution. Hybrid connectivity is a term that's been bandied around quite a lot at the minute. So you'll even see it with BT utilising it for their home broadband services at the minute. And hybrid connectivity, we believe, is going to be one of the key things to the success of data transfer actually going forward, because the demand for digital transformation across any sector, whether that's private or whether that is public services, and the drive to deliver data in cloud-based solutions is increasing. And then when you start to look at how can we transfer that data across the different connectivity streams, it would be impossible to deliver it always over one thing. So it would be like trying to go down one motorway and access every location in the whole of the UK with no other road infrastructure. So what we start to look at is something called hybrid connectivity, which for Accelerate means looking at the use of terrestrial infrastructures. How do we connect to 4G? When might we need to look at things like private networks, and how can we introduce that private transmission into a solution? How can we start to use satellite services, often thought of as quite expensive, and possibly traditionally they were. However, they have a place, and when you start to look at certain types of data, actually things like satellite can all of a sudden become very cost effective in comparison to kind of the 3G, 4G routes. So connectivity and ensuring connectivity in your world can be seen as a little bit more overwhelming, because it shouldn't just be one thing. We have to start looking at a hybrid approach to deliver within your critical landscape and in quite a complex landscape. So quite typically, you might be familiar with some of these vehicles, some people on the webinar. Historically, what we have delivered with our customers was a command and control vehicle, which is still a huge part of what we do, both in the UK and also globally. And typically on that command vehicle is the use of some kind of hybrid network. So the ability to transmit data over 4G when it's available, the ability to link or failover onto satellite broadband, or use a mix of both if we need to, and in some cases create a completely private and independent 4G network from those vehicles, so that all of your 4G or Wi-Fi enabled devices can connect in those areas where there might not be the terrestrial networks available to you. What we're seeing in terms of an increase now is scalability. command vehicles are wonderful and they absolutely have their place. And, it's everything from this very large one that you can see here, kind of, West Midlands, you guys have one yourselves, West Yorkshire, that large style, right through to kind of more the sprinter, so more of a command support functioning style vehicle. But actually, as we start to scale out now and technology is becoming much, much more scaled and more available, we're certainly seeing an increase in the smart appliance route or connected vehicle route. So certainly with Mid and West Wales, and Steve, we worked with closely when he was at Mid and West Wales, and part of the strategy there was looking at that always on connected. How can we make sure, a water rescue vehicle through to a command support unit, through to a command unit, through to kind of a fire appliance is connected wherever they might need to go, and for a variety of things, not just the major incident approach, but also the everyday, because we want to enable our workforce to become digital. However, just issuing a device wasn't good enough because it didn't support people with always on real time connectivity from a mobile perspective, from that movement of that vehicle, but also going from maybe an urban to a rural location, that didn't work. Or a pre-planned kind of event where all of a sudden demands on public infrastructure have increased, and therefore reliance heavily on mobile phones or just the 4G network hampered that ability to use that kind of that online thing. So these were all things that often came up, and certainly came up within projects like that. So a connected fleet approach was something that became very, very beneficial to the likes of Mid and West Wales. It has done for others. I'm going to touch on some use cases. They're by no means limited to these cases, but these are the ones that we've picked out purely for the webinar. And there really can be a mix of technology to scale both the resilience and the reliability of a fleet now, but more importantly, enable an organization to access all of the different types of data that they want to see. One of the key areas that we get involved in and have commonly been involved in from day one in our organization is the ability to video stream. And we've been real-time live video streaming across different technologies and different devices for many, many years. It is becoming more mainstream now. It is a huge requirement. I still remember my colleague being at a NATO exercise, and this is probably 10, 15 years ago, and we had body-worn cameras back then, and some people poo-pooed them and they thought, just the cost and you don't need that, blah, blah, blah. When you see people pick up their tables and chairs on an incident from other agencies that were involved in this NATO exercise, and pick them up to move them in front of a screen to see what's going on, because all of a sudden they can see that live picture and put that information on a map. Back then, we don't need to do that now. We've got people like Iris and command software platforms that you can plot that stuff onto. But that's when you start to see the magic happen, because you start to see how people can interact, because all of a sudden they've got that information available to them. And that's really important. So video has been a huge part of what we do, but more importantly, enabling the reliability of that video in different situations. So we have everything from body-worn cameras, dual SIM, multifunctional body-worn cameras that have the embedded GPS capability and location tracking. They can have man-down capability. They've got an app-based functionality that you can, ensure that it's completely interoperable with technology like Zebra and also like the Iris platform. When needed, you start to look at more point-to-point resilient forms like COFDM. So this one here on the fire officer here, is a COFTM technology. COFTM is a technology that's been used in Formula One for a really long time. So if you've ever wondered how they get the images out of a Formula One car back to their guys who are operating, you know, all the statistics and things like that, it's through technology like COFTM, which is also what the broadcasters use. So it has its place depending on how resilient you want to be. Trending or becoming more kind of apparent now is, you know, drone technology. The use of drone in operations is huge, and it's marvelous. And actually, we've got some links later to a case study where, you know, you can see how a drone is supporting, you know, a kayaker rescue off the coast of Dorset, for example, using both tracking and drone technology. But most importantly, it's all connected and it's all enabled to allow that to happen. So, you know, finding the right kind of plug and play solution or thing that you can take with you so that we can get video beyond the drone operator and actually embedded into either software like the OS platform or just simply direct to a control room or a command, you know, or detailed across the incident ground. So you've got this mix of kind of both looking at the devices, which is a huge and important factor, but also actually how can we connect? And the reality is there's many methods of doing so. And sometimes just looking at the obvious like 4G isn't always the best scenario or best solution because it doesn't support an emergency response and it doesn't allow for all of those factors that can happen you know, within that environment. We start to look also at beyond vehicle capabilities. So, you know, we've moved away from fleets or just wearable technology now. We literally want to take this network anywhere we can with us. Why wouldn't you? And more importantly, why would you not want to be able to manage that network? You know, as I said earlier, that hybrid approach, and if we only are connected to one thing, there is only so much available bandwidth for people to be able to use. And depending on, you know, what's going on in that environment when you're deployed, you know, there are many factors that might impact the connectivity. And therefore being able to manage that is the difference between, you know, people thinking the technology is successful versus not successful, which is again something Paul touched on earlier, the connectivity let down, you know, the use of devices in a different project. It doesn't have to be that case now. The Links Hub is something that is a beyond vehicle. It's a completely portable mobile hotspot that does kind of, you know, backhaul off of 4G networks, but you can plug it into kind of, you know, your Wi-Fi, you can plug it into satellite if that's what you want to do. And that was developed with the Mid and West Wales T20 programme. So, you know, it really did go through its paces in terms of how does a firefighter or officer want to operate in the field and what are going to be the beneficial features and functionality of that, and keeping it simple. You know, that KISS approach is a huge ethos within our research and development teams and within our business. And you know, certainly through kind of the history of my time in Accelerate and still to today, it's how can we make this as simple to use as possible? How can we connect simply with other things? Because if this becomes complicated, nobody wants to use it. Just in terms of touching on use cases and you know, where some of this technology gets deployed, you know, cellular is a great thing when it's available to us, and actually there's technology now that can optimize cellular connectivity and functionality beyond how we know it when it's there. So something like the XL antenna, we've taken its lid off for this photo, and you know, really no antenna is the same. This is quite a clever antenna in terms of it has this beam forming technology inside it. So actually it always powers towards the mast, and it was designed for the maritime industry and the you know, vessels and for yachts, because of course they go very far off coast, and you know, if they want to connect to 4G, it's quite problematic for them. And some of them have some pretty strict regulations actually, in terms of, you know, particularly the fishing industry, who we also work with, in terms of they have to have this connectivity, because some of their regulations and their business operations rely heavily on real-time data and real-time information. So this is the type of system that was designed to keep yachts and boats and vessels connected, you know, kilometers offshore, that's now being deployed within many of our emergency services vehicles, from smart ambulances. You know, some of those include intensive care units actually, which is very life critical in terms of the information that they need from a transfer. And what this does is, as I said, give you the most optimized and best possible 4G connection possible for quite, you know, a small amount of money, or for good value. And you know, there's some good examples, Shropshire being one of them. It was used at the Polymers incident, and Shropshire is a customer of ours, and you know, they have built a vehicle and they have built a capability within their service that is designed upon resilience and has that connectivity embedded, you know, within their project and the ethos of what they wanted to deliver, so that they have a really sound and really good command support system, and can, you know, enable access to the devices, enable access to their cloud-based systems and their online tools. You know, it's a good example because it was there and it was available. But you know, within that incident, you know, there was an issue with, you know, a terrestrial mast, nothing that anybody can do. And you know, had they not had the Excel platform there, which enabled them to continue to have a good and usable connection to cellular, for example, as well as the backup of satellite, then you know, they wouldn't have had access to connectivity. But it's a good example where, you know, we have worked with them. I think they work with everybody actually, probably on the webinar, but we have all worked with them to design and develop a solution that, one, has the connectivity that underpins so many of the devices and the cloud-based applications, you know, and then together we can ensure that they have, you know, a complete and utter interoperability across all the technology and all of the platforms. Northamptonshire, who, I don't know if many of you've seen their command and control vehicle. It is the first multi-agency, so they operate as a joint operations team within the UK. But they are scaling out. So their project at the minute is a whole connected fleet strategy. So they have a command and control vehicle. If I go on to the next slide, you'll see this in kind of more of a schematic form to get a better picture. Their command and control vehicle is used by both police. It is used by fire too. So from a network perspective, ultra resilient to accommodate not just the major incident response side of things, which, as you know better than I, comes with its challenges in terms of how you deploy. Sometimes that is around public, and you know, when you deploy to the major incident, that, you know, broadcasters are there, people are there, and they are just sapping you know, the 4G kind of networks. They also go to Silverstone because of the police side of the operations. And Silverstone, for sure, when you've got, you know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people at the Grand Prix, I can promise you're not accessing Facebook on your home mobile at all. And therefore they can't rely just on that 4G network. And equally, they can't just rely on the infrastructure that gets provided by the venue, because the venue will sometimes put a hard link into there, but that doesn't always cut it either. So from a command and control vehicle perspective, they have an abundance of resilient connectivity options available to them. So not only is it a suite of, you know, screens and PCs and access to kind of their heli-tele downlinks, their drone operations teams, their police teams, their control rooms, etc. From an on-the-ground perspective and connecting devices or connecting other agencies, tactical advisors, whatever that might be, they operate Wi-Fi, they operate a private LTE network. And when I talk about a private LTE network, I'm talking about a private 4G network that they can transmit in excess of 1,000 meters, a kilometer, in every single direction of that vehicle, of which devices like the Zebra tablet can connect to, and always have that private connectivity option for that situational awareness, and giving teams or your guys on the field that ability to always stay connected with their devices, irrespective of what's going on with the main kind of the connectivity channels. They also operate satellite. Satellite actually is one of the best communication bearers for things like video streaming, to provide a constant video streaming with less jitter, less buffer, and in some cases can be much more cost effective. So when you're looking at different types of data sets and different types of transfer, we can actually create very managed systems now that automate how data is delivered over what type of network with seamless failover. We've got a new product which we've recently launched called our Hybrid Edge Appliance and SD-WAN, and that is a fully kind of managed, that can host applications on that device itself. So you're starting to reduce the real estate and how many hardware systems go onto your vehicle. At the same time, deliver a really effective and optimized service for delivering data over lots of different communications channels. In terms of their fleet, we have the first 8 vehicles that have already been delivered.
Sorry, Nicola, we're going to have to wrap up a bit,
yeah,
just to have some time for questions.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, thanks.
If I finish this, we're good then. They've got the first 8 vehicles, which are fire appliances, fully connected. So they're 4G, they will connect to the command vehicle. And also they've got their turntable ladder, which is going to be doing the same thing. So Northants have a fully connected strategy. And I suppose what I'm saying is they are underpinning their digital transformation programs, the ability to get online and connect devices, by making sure that they are applying the right technologies and connectivity strategy across both their fleet and their wearable solutions. Everything else from me was just more of these are projects that we're involved in, which when we share our presentation, I have provided some really good links to some videos and case studies where, particularly the 5G rural Dorset one, you will see some real life use cases with drone technology, GPS location technology, and you can just see, people other than me talking about how important it is to be connected. And if they can do it in environments like that and see the benefits to both public safety and community, we can certainly do that within projects, at this level. So over to anybody if they've got any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicola. Maybe let's take one question, and then the remaining ones we can actually cover them at the end. Like this, we have plenty of time. I see Carlos. Yes, you also raised your hand. So perfect. You can make the question. Your own.
Hi. Thank you very much. I work for a Swedish fire brigade, and I reside in Sweden. So we have in Sweden, we work with a provider that's called Incident Chair, who does basically the same stuff. But what I'm wondering is, you was talking about this mobile worn cameras. And what I wonder is, are they approvable also for smoke diving? Because if you're looking at it, there's mostly a problem if you have smoke divers inside of a building to get a picture out to the commanders. Because I can describe whatever with my mouth, but normally the entire picture does not come out. So how is the equipment for this type of usage?
No, that's a really, really good question. So we're device agnostic. So what you saw is just some of the solutions that we work with. and they have been tested and trialed, you know, in both the UK kind of, you know, fire buildings. So they will go inside and they will use them from that perspective. And equally, there are other technologies. So for us, the hardware is less of a problem. We can get access to the hardware. It is the method of connectivity and how we get that information back to somebody. So we might look at that from a wearable perspective. We might have to design how that hardware, you know, connects to kind of a transmitter, for example, or how do we deploy the technology to get that feed out. So for us, the device is less important actually, because sometimes we're working with existing customers' devices that they're quite happy to use, but the problem is they love it, but it won't connect from A to B, and that's the area that we will get involved in, is working out how can we get that information out. So it might be about deploying something that in there with you, or it might be how, you know, can we create a network that can penetrate that type of environment, and can we connect to that device?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for your answer.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Carlos, for your question as well. And thank you, Nicola, for the presentation. So I saw there are some other questions on the chat, but we're gonna keep them for the end, so we have enough time for our final presentation from Olivier Horel, Government and Field Operations Account Manager, UK and Ireland at Zebra Technologies. So Zebra, as you saw, are also part of many of these projects, and they're well known for their ROG tablets and ROG handheld devices. However, they are much more than that, working in a very holistic way with their solutions, but also with many partners to actually support the digitalization of our services. So today, Ollie is going to talk about how Zebra is helping transform frontline first responders and bringing them now into this 21st century technology-wise. So Ollie, I leave the floor for you.
Thank you very much, Alfonso. And again, thank you to the team at Unblur for hosting the webinar, and to Steve, Nicola and Paul for some fantastic presentations before me. So as Alfonso briefly touched on, I'm Ollie Horrell. I'm a Government Field Ops Account Manager for Zebra here in the UK and Ireland. And today I'm going to talk about Zebra's kind of what we're trying to achieve in aiding your journeys into becoming more digitized and with digital innovation. And of course, kind of we save the best till last, right? Because Unblur software and accelerates interconnected technology wouldn't happen actually without physical hardware. So here goes. If I can actually forward. So I don't know if many of you have heard, but just to quickly touch on who we are as an organization. So Zebra is a global company founded 50 years ago, primarily on the context of barcoding, labeling and printing. We've carried that through, and that's still a big feature of our business today, including into the world of RFID. As you see there, we're #1 market leader as recognized by Gartner. I think crucially, and a USP of Zebra for me is we take pride in our engagement with customers, and we actually listen to the feedback of customers and our devices in field, and that's proof by investing. You'll see at the bottom left hand corner of your screen, circa 10% of our sales revenue back into the business for R&D into the next generation of products. So when you engage with us, you really do engage. Some other highlights of our kind of portfolio: we've obviously got a extensive rugged mobile computing portfolio, which we've touched on today through some of the handhelds and tablets that Unblur use to put their software application on. Of course, not just us, but we're one of the providers, as well as West Mids have deployed, and we can work too with Accelerate to connect into all of that. I joined Zebra 18 months ago, so I've actually been in a very lucky position of starting this digital journey that you guys are on for fire and rescue is kind of, I've started in that point of in joining it with you and learning all about it. So we've taken it into 3 different steps. 1 is digitizing, 2 augmenting your processes, and 3 enabling and fully automating to enable you as first responders to get focused on activities that you critical to supporting your responses. So what do I mean by digitizing? So that's actually providing physical hardware to help remove paper, remove human error, but also to help with reducing costs and increasing kind of the information and data that's available to you as first line responders. Of course, I think Paul touched on it in his presentation. Kind of our products are not only single use purpose, but you can use those for multiple different things. And there's been messages flying around in the chat box as well around using devices as PDAs as well as Unblur's applications on instant command support. And that's exactly what we pride ourselves on. As well as also you'll see in the middle part of the screen, the low cost of ownership. Now that's we Zebra pride ourselves, and one of our sustainability credentials is long lifespan of products, and we have a 3+3 year model. So if a device is produced and manufactured for 3 years, we then support that for a further 3 years, meaning you get the longest lifespan out of those products, hoping to help support you in your environmental credentials and sustainability journey, and also meaning you don't have to reinvest in technology every 2 years or so. But further to that, we also augment that technology, and that helps provide visibility to you as organizations, and give you access to that kind of information. You'll see in the bottom right hand corner of the screen is an example of how RFID technology is used actually in fire and rescue services to help augment kind of the digitization process and give information back to you to do things like safety checks, to nudge you to do training, or to actually be able to log on and use kind of the PDA tool Workforce Connect. And finally, I'd like to touch on the digital automation aspect. So of course it goes without saying that we've got a whole range of there's a range of RFID software suites that help give real-time location live asset tracking. So we've got you saw some handheld examples. We've also got fixed position readers and antennas, some of which, if that's part of the portfolio, we can share. It's all available on zebra.com as well, and it gives you kind of accuracy and visibility and that insights in real time. Wouldn't of course all be possible without hardware, tablets, and connectivity to the internet in order to give you that information at that particular point when you're out on the front line. And of course, kind of it helps reduce and emit human error from a data entry perspective, and all of that can be stored on cloud systems and accessed, as Paul touched on, kind of wherever you are, and even if you're remote away from an incident, you can see and respond in that time too. Steve touched on the fact in his presentation that things are like take it in Lego blocks, and I think that's kind of how we'd like to look at it too, from a Zebra perspective. We've got a varied portfolio, be it from mobile computing, tablets, handhelds, and also into RFID and storage solutions as well. But the point that in the 3 key pillars that you can see on here that we're talking to, you can take each of those individually, and to Steve's Lego point, you can build them up to create a fully integrated, interoperable solution, similarly to what West Mids are doing, around kind of helping you transform your operations and your response teams. So if I touch on asset tracking briefly, we use RFID technology, and that goes down to the minutiae level of barcoding, labeling, to give real-time visibility as to where assets are in respect to instant ground, and you can see kind of which asset belongs to which truck, allocate and assign, and make sure that it saves time kind of post-incident when you're reclaiming back all of your equipment from maybe the first 2 trucks that arrived at the scene. Today, Zebra has been talked about a lot for mobile computing. So, you know, kind of obviously we have a breadth of portfolio, and as Steve touched on, Android, Windows mobile operation systems, so to help kind of support kind of your applications and frontline journey. And also kind of to pillar 3, talking around critical communications. Of course, we kind of understand, and Steve touched on it, we have, there are colleagues of mine here who were in your shoes, and they understand the importance of always being connected, always being on, and we're working with organisations like Accelerate to help kind of make sure that your devices and the information and the access that you need to data you need at that particular moment in your response is actually kind of you get given it, and you get it 99.99% of the time. Of course, kind of it's technology after all, so we fully accept it's probably not perfect all the time. If I touch on, and I hope Paul doesn't mind me saying this, and I agree, I think I do attest to the comments that he's made, and it's been a very good learning curve for me. We're very collaborative with him, and I'm very grateful to him and his project team in West Midlands for the opportunity to talk and to deploy a solution like we've got on the screen. He touched briefly on the fact that, as you can see down the left-hand side, this is kind of the outgoing technology, laptops, pagers, desktop computers, walkie-talkie devices in aid of, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong here, saying anything that I shouldn't be, but our TC7057 device as kind of the device for the shift. Employees, workers will be able to log on and use that device, get access to their training through, and use it as their computer for that shift in the form of our Workstation Connect solution, as you can see in the top hand side of the screen. But not only that, linking into a PDA, so we're trialing Workforce Connect, which is our PDA software with them, which provides access to mapping. It will also give users access to talk groups in a talk groups, kind of similar groups to WhatsApp. Think of it like WhatsApp, a messaging tool, and that can all be recorded and integrated in with the Unblur system, so you can kind of record date, timestamp messages, calls to action in kind of post-incident debriefs as well. Of course, we're trialing the use of our storage solution in intelligent cabinets. So each on some of the pilot stations, there'll be a cabinet, and the officers will go to that cabinet, pick a device up, and that will be where they then return it to at the end of their shift. I think Paul touched on it briefly, but we've also ran a project with them to put our tablets that you can also see in the middle of the screen there to help give information to frontline, the Iris application, and that will also sit in the fire appliances too. I think beyond this, and I don't know if Paul's minds me talking about this, but we would like to also run pilots around asset tracking and asset visibility on the trucks, and also in stations too, so they can monitor, manage, and see where their assets are, asset health, and you know, be in continuous dialogue with us and Zebra, them and us, and as a manufacturer and end user combination. So I know I've rushed through this quite quickly, and I'm conscious of everyone's time, but as a Zebra government team, we want to make efficient and effective firefighters. We want to make efficient and effective end users out of you all. We've obviously got a fleet of devices that operate on both Android and Windows software. We also have that multifunctional device utilization, so it means you don't have to have 5 devices, each for a separate purpose. That one device can be your trusted partner throughout your day shift. We've also got access to the operational flexibility. So not only does it come with kind of a stack of accessories, as we've kind of touched on briefly in this, but it's also got software, and we work with partners such as Accelerate and Unblur to help kind of augment what we do as an organization, and really support you operationally. We have a full kind of analytics and management systems to help provide the visibility into the device health, but also what users are using, applications users are using the most, battery life performance, charging, and a whole host of analytics. So you can, as IT teams as well, you can manage those estates and get the best value, and also see where devices are being used the most and apportion devices to the correct, the right number of devices to the right locations. But critically, as we operate in this space, we've obviously been certified with, got government software certified approval. We've also worked with Cyber Essentials security solutions as well, to make sure that we are, up to the standards that you all need and want. And finally, that reduced carbon footprint. I touched on it earlier, kind of our device lifespan in terms of it's built and manufactured for 3 years, and we support it and warranty it for a further 3 years beyond that. And that's inclusive of breakages, fixes, glitches with software. We hope to help reduce your carbon footprint, reduce your IT spend on devices each year, and kinder to the environment. All of this helps to provide you a device and software across our 3 kind of core areas: asset tracking, mobile computing, critical comms, and with our full rep ecosystem and those Lego building blocks of all those different things, we hope to provide, along with our ISV partners, a fully integrated solution. So finally from me, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I hope that when you think to your government needs, you think of us as Zebra, and also the partners and breadth of capability we can do. So thank you, and open floor to questions.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. Any question from the audience? You can raise your hands or write on the chat box. No questions. Also, just for the last 5 minutes as well, if you have any questions for any of the other speakers, we can also raise them now before we close. Paul, you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, it's for Nicola. It's around the Links hubs. Can I borrow some for a trial?
Of course you can.
Lovely.
No, it's not. That's not, honestly, all I think, we're a fantastic believer in, you guys need to see this in situ and put it to the test in your own environment, and I think that's an ethos that Unblur and Zebra and us all share. So anybody, seriously, welcome a conversation. Welcome to understand your needs, and if it is a case of trialing some things, then yeah, you are more than welcome. And Alfonso, I saw some other questions that came in on the chat, and just kind of extending on that, I think someone said something about the UAVs and dongles and things like that. I think don't worry about what you've seen on my presentation and whether you think that's too big or too small or whatever. We have a research and development department, and yes, certain products do get developed a certain size, but equally our ethos is about developing sometimes solutions just for you to fit that kind of importance. So variation of what you see as standard is something that we also look to deliver alongside our customers. So it's not necessarily always fixed products. What you see is a box with a solution inside it, and that can be any shape or size.
So the other part of my question was around, so we currently have data SIM cards for all mobile devices, phones, pulled data.
Yeah.
Now, does the Links hub help enhance that and connect into our data, or is it further data because I've also bought data's cards for all the tablets. That's not cheap data.
No, so I mean the Lynx Hub has dual SIM capability in it, as many of our products do. And the reason we put dual SIM in there is for a variety of reasons. One, for the customers that we have that do sometimes operate private LTE networks and private networks, it allows for them to populate their own kind of SIMs. Some customers will use multi-roaming SIMs. We also provide multi-roaming SIM with whole kind of pooled data fleet, data for fleet or data for devices. So you can use that one SIM in there, or some locations are, it's two different SIMs, two different networks to try and mitigate that. So yeah, you could pop your own in there, or you could use one of ours. It's not an issue.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Nicola. Any other questions or comments that anyone would like to raise? Okay, Jim from FRSs College sent some nice comments. Well, I think then we can wrap up from here. So thank you everyone for attending and making some time for attending this webinar, as well for sharing and interacting so much in the chat and through the questions. And thank you very much to Steve, Paul, Oli, and Nicola for participating in this webinar. So we are going to be in touch. We'll share some more information about this webinar with all of you. And also, if you have any questions about the topics, about digitalization, to get your hands on any of these, and yes, we will be in touch. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Alfonso. Cheers all. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Alfonso.
thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.